Welcome back to yet another episode of the Drift Car Build-Off presented by Spec Clutch and Koyorad.
Today we're going to put the S54 back in the engine bay, and then we're going to work on the front end. We have bolted up the front subframe with these Rock Auto engine mounts that we reinforced with some urethane. You can go back to the previous episode if you want to see that. And we've also run the wiring from the gauges through a grommet here so that we can hook up our oil temp, oil pressure, and water temp gauges. And before we put this in, we also want to do the short shifter install. This is a Dinan Billet Short Shifter kit that Pete ordered up because he wants that good shifter feel.
Well, feel that old one. It is super sloppy. It's got
yeah.
like 300,000 kilometers on it,
Yeah.
so there's way too much planing, a ton of slop.
Yeah. This Dinan shifter has a really nice like spherical bearing that's self-lubricating in here, and it's got some dampening built into it as well. So apparently it has a really nice positive feel to it. It shortens, throws up 20-25%, and apparently isn't really very high effort either, because they've counterweighted it. So you can see this ball on this end is quite big and beefy, which counterweights it and makes it fairly low effort compared to, say, the stock one, where you can see this end piece down here is much smaller, so it doesn't counterbalance it or counterweight it in any way. So I think they send really detailed instructions with how to do it. It looks pretty straightforward, but as usual, I'm going to defer to Pete on this and get his hands in here.
Thinking this is gonna be a worthwhile upgrade. It feels so much stiffer and nicer than the sloppy stock one. So with that in place, I'm just gonna throw this in there, but we're not necessarily gonna install this until we put the transmission in place. So DP, I think it's finally time we put this motor back into this engine bay. That job turned into, well, it was a little bit harder than I expected because the engine transmission came out so easily, but putting it back in, I think the problem is we had the whole thing on an angle, which the subframe didn't want us to line up, and you really do need to center everything between the frame rails because there's very little room for this subframe to tuck in onto the chassis, into the frame rail there. So anyways, I think we are in place now. I'm just torquing these to 57 foot-pounds. And there we go. Once we're done with that, we're gonna start moving on, just taking care of small little things like hooking up the shifter, bolting the transmission mount up, maybe these fuel lines, and then we're gonna work our way to the top where we've got some other cool things to install.
It is time to put the air box back in for the ITBs, but before we do that, we're giving her a little upgrade in the hose department, thanks to our friends at Samco Sport out of the UK. They have these ITB box hoses in a variety of colors, and when you build a yellow drift car, I think it only makes sense to go with the yellow hoses. It's a dress-up thing, but it is also a reliability thing. These silicone hoses are very durable. In fact, they're so durable that Samco offers them with a lifetime guarantee. And the factory ones are like your typical factory hose, made of rubber, and over age, these will get brittle and start to crack and maybe allow a leak to happen there. So with this motor being so high mileage, we figured it was a good time to replace these. They're not actually in terrible condition, but the cool thing at looking at the two of them together is you can see that Samco has done a really good job of replicating this O-ring and this lip on the inside, which as you can see on the actual throttle body, there's a groove here for that O-ring. And then obviously the lip will just hit up against the front of the throttle body so that when you install it, it can really only go in as far as that O-ring allows. And then you can also opt for their very high quality hose clamps. These are a stainless steel clamp, and as we discovered installing the first 5, they are really nice to use. They're very smooth operating, so nice high quality clamp. Should also mention that Samco makes all of their hoses in the UK with mandrels that are an exact copy of the OE hoses. So these will fit exactly like an OE hose, with the benefit of them being silicone. There's usually 3 or 4 plies and then the silicone over top. It's all handmade, so these are pretty labor intensive to make, which would explain why they come at a bit of a premium price, but it really is a premium product. And we'll also be using those for rad hoses and some other hoses you'll see along the way. So PT's already got the 5 on. He's left 1 for me here.
The time lapse sure makes that look easy. However, there was a lot of cursing going on and there was a lot of frustration putting a lot of this back together. And that is because me and Dave didn't take this apart. Moose did. And because Moose took it apart, that means we didn't know where anything went. So it was a lot of head scratching, trying to put stuff on, being like, uh-oh, we put this on, then we forgot this piece, this plastic piece, for example. I thought we put the airbox on, but it should have went in first. Anyways, we fought with it to get it in there. So I think we have, for the most part, a complete motor back together. I want to show you another Samco hose item, and that is an air intake boot. This replaces the factory unit, and as you can see, there's a lot of accordions on here, and it pinches down just a little bit in this area. And the Samco one doesn't, so it's much smoother, larger radius, and of course it is not prone to cracking like this factory one. And my real reasoning for replacing this is it was such a bitch to try to get back in there because it has no flex like the Samco one does. So also a benefit that is gone. Thank you very much. So we have one more thing I want to show you, and that is in the shifter area where we have to finish off the shift boot and the lever. Inside here, we've got our Dinan Short Shifter, and man, it feels really nice. So the topic is, what do we put on top of it? This is the factory shift knob, and it's a one-piece unit that has the boot and the shift knob built into it. So I've got a replacement shift knob that I'm really stoked to use. However, you need to cut this one off to use the actual boot. So I'm just gonna send it right here, go as high as I can, and just start cutting with my knife and hope that I achieve the kind of cut that I want to do here. There it goes. All right. Now, I think this was a factory option where the M light, or sorry, the M logo would light up here, which is why there's wiring in the old shift knob. So now let's drop this guy on here. Put this down. I think what you can do is kind of roll the cut boot back in a little bit to give you a nicer look, just like that. Now we'll push this back down. There we go. That looks nicer-ish, I think. We'll get that figured out in a second. So if I was going to run the factory shift knob, you can see it's kind of low for what we're trying to do in terms of racing. So again, I turned to Bimmerworld, and this is their Jaffster V2 Delrin shift knob. And the main advantage of this is for height. So let me see if I can line this up, pop it in, and you'll see, wow, there it goes, that's it. Now you can see how much taller this is. It's going to be much better. Let me see, let's get this aligned here. It's going to be way better for drifting, throwing the gears around, making sure they're precise. It's nice and big. It's also Delrin, which means in a convertible like this, it's not going to heat up. And it's pretty lightweight too, so it doesn't add a lot. Even though it's big, it doesn't add a lot of bulk to the shifter assembly here. I really like it. I think it's going to work exceptionally well. So with that in place, I think we are done in the interior. There's just one last thing left that we want to do, and that is in the suspension area.
Taking a little break from the engine bay because frankly, we're kind of tired of working on engine stuff. So it's been a lot. So we figured we'd throw on the knuckle here and take a look at this rear bush that locates here on the back of the rear lower wishbone. And this is obviously a big bushing with a lot of flex in it. So we want to get rid of some of that to give us better stability of suspension geometry under brakes and in corners, and apparently also improve steering feel. To do that, we are going with this PowerFlex unit. This is part of their Black series, which I think is their stiffest. It's rated at, I think, 95A, so it is very stiff. And as you can see, the main sort of shell is this anodized aluminum housing, and you can see that the center is actually offset compared to the stock one, and that gives it an extra half degree of caster. And caster on a drift car is a good thing because that'll help with self-steering. And it's good on a race car too, so it'll give you better high-speed stability. So all in all, we think that's a nice little bonus. And it's also got this poly insert that slides in here and actually rotates, which prevents any kind of like binding in that joint. So I think that's a nice feature as well. So the trick now is to press this one out, press this guy in, lubricate it appropriately, and then bolt it up to the car. Okay, we have the PowerFlex bushing in place, and we did have to take a bit of a file to the aluminum hex-shaped section of the arm here to make it press on properly, and you do have to press it on quite far to get it all to line up, but it's in there, and as you can see, it all moves nice and freely. In fact, it's really interesting to see how that bushing inside the aluminum housing allows such free motion of the arm. I think it's a very clever design. So yeah, we're excited to see how the back-end PowerFlex bushings work as well. And I think that's a wrap on this episode, PT.
I think so.
I think we're done. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Appreciate all the support. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to follow along with this drift build and the 350Z. You'll be seeing more of that soon as well. And hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss any upcoming episodes. We've heard from some of our viewers that they're not getting emails about our latest episodes, so that bell will fix all your problems. And of course, if you have any style problems, we can fix those too over at speedacademy.shop.